remember that the global economy itself, I think, is going to bounce back and possibly grow by a rate of more than 6% in 2021. The US economy looks set to grow at a pace of more than 8%. So these are some incredible numbers that we have not seen in post-war history because of this huge distortion that's been caused by the pandemic. So I'd be very careful about just reading 1 year's numbers. The more important question I think that you have raised is, what is the trend growth rate? What is the kind of growth rate that we can expect to see for the rest of the decade? Because that's really what matters rather than 1 year's numbers. So I think that here, as you know, my favorite line about India has always been that this is a country that consistently disappoints the optimists and the pessimists. And I suspect that narrative is not going to change, which is that, yeah, in 2020, there was a lot of room for pessimism. In 2021, I think a fair amount of room for optimism. India's situation in terms of at least the way, if you look at the death rates, the hospitalization, the infection rates, has broadly been pretty good compared to the rest of the world. The good thing about corporate India is that it has adjusted to this new reality. You know, we saw this in the late 1990s also, Swami, which is that the Indian economy, after liberalization in 1991, in the first few years after that, we saw an explosion in GDP growth rate, or a pretty significant step up in GDP growth rate. And then you had the East Asian crisis in 97, 98, and then the growth rates fell again. It took a while for corporate India to adjust to that. The cost basis was still too fat, and it took a while for them to adjust for that until the new cycle began. I think the good news for corporate India today, and we've seen this even over the past year during the pandemic, is that the cost bases have adjusted quite a bit. They've cut costs very significantly. So many organizations and many firms, including those watching us, I think will agree that they've cut and slashed costs quite significantly over the last year, even during the pandemic, and in general, over the last 3 to 4 years. So I think that corporate India today is leaner, it's fitter, and is poised to do better in the coming years because their operating leverage will be far greater from a reduced cost base. So any top line growth you get will have a multiplicative effect as far as profits are concerned. So yeah, I do feel more optimistic about the corporate profitability as far as India is concerned, or emerging markets in general. So why cryptocurrency is doing so well, I think we have to think deeply about this. It's also because of the entire amount of money that the central banks around the world have printed. There's one statistic here which was, which is really eye-popping. 20% of all the dollars in circulation in the world today were printed just last year. Think about this. All the dollars in circulation, 20% were printed just last year. Even in places like India, the Reserve Bank of India was forced to print a lot of money to revive the economy. That nearly 10% of all the rupees in circulation were, I think, printed just in 2020. So not as much as the Fed did, but even there. So you're printing all this amount of money, and to expect no consequence because of this is, I think, just wrong-headed. There will be consequences. On the cryptocurrency front, their supply is very limited. A lot of the young generation, the millennials, etc., think that cryptocurrencies is like a store of value for them. It's the alternative to gold. So therefore, they're rushing there. Of course, there's some speculative element to it when an asset rises exponentially. But you have to think about what is the root cause of this incredible inflation in cryptocurrencies. It's coming from all this money printing which is going on, which is finding its way in different places. Now, if you ban something at one place, it'll show up somewhere else. So therefore, these bans are just like playing whack-a-mole, where you put the lid down somewhere and something else will pop up at another point.